Hi everyone, this is Sarfraz from Aristotle Prep, and we are looking at passage number 9 from the OG 13 RC chapter. This has questions 37 to 41. As always, we will first read the passage. I will explain it to you the way I would explain it to myself if I were attempting this passage. We will discuss what is the main purpose of the passage, and then we will approach the questions. The first sentence of the passage is always very important. It says, manufacturers have to do more than build large manufacturing plants to realize economies of scale. So I know it will be a business passage, something about manufacturing and economies of scale, and it says a manufacturer has to do much more than just build large plants to realize economies of scale. So now I'm curious to know what else does a manufacturer have to do. It is true that as the capacity of a manufacturing operation rises, costs per unit of output fall as plant size approaches minimum efficient scale, where the cost per unit of output reaches a minimum determined roughly by the state of existing technology and size of the potential market. So basically, all that I have understood from here is it is true that as the capacity of a plant goes up, the cost per unit goes down, something which is eventually going to approach the minimum efficient scale. However, minimum efficient scale cannot be fully realized unless a steady throughput, which is the flow of materials through a plant, is attained. So it says to attain that minimum efficient scale, you have to uh, maintain a steady throughput. Okay. The throughput needed to maintain the optimal scale of production requires careful coordination not only of the flow of goods through the production process, but also of the flow of input from suppliers and the flow of output to wholesalers and final consumers. The important thing in this sentence is throughput does not only mean the work happening inside your production plant. It also includes the raw material coming from supplier and the finished product going to your wholesaler. Okay. If throughput falls below a critical point, unit costs rise sharply and profits disappear. A manufacturer's fixed costs and sunk costs, which are original capital investment in the physical plant. Okay, so the fixed cost and sunk costs do not decrease when production declines due to inadequate supplies of raw material, problem on the factory floor, or inefficient sales network. Whatever be the reason, if your production goes down, your fixed cost and sunk cost does not change. We know that. Consequently, potential economies of scale are based on the physical and engineering characteristic of the production facilities, that is, on tangible capital, but realized economies of scale are operational and organizational and depend on knowledge, skills, experience, and teamwork, that is, on organized human capabilities or intangible capital. Now, the key thing that I've understood is he's talking about two kinds of economies of scale: potential economies and realized economies. The entire paragraph actually is basically telling you that the potential economies of scale depends on how big a manufacturing plant you create. But the realized economy of scale depends on the throughput, which is the human involvement. That is very, very important. Whether the raw material comes on time, whether your shipment is done on time, to take care of any dispute on the shop floor, all those things have to be done by the humans, which is the intangible capital. So basically, the entire point that I've understood from the first paragraph is just building a huge manufacturing facility will not help you realize that minimum efficient scale. The minimum efficient scale is a function of the throughput, and the throughput is a function of human capital, human involvement. That's basically the first paragraph for you. Now, of course, there were a lot of things in the first paragraph, the details which I have not understood or which I did not try to understand, because had I tried that, I would have not understood the paragraph the way I have. And I can, of course, go back and read it again if there's any question that I don't get. So, second paragraph says the importance of investing in intangible capital, which is human capital, becomes obvious when one looks at what happens in new capital intensive manufacturing industries. So now it's providing further support for the conclusion at the end of the first paragraph that it's important to invest in intangible capital. Such industries are quickly dominated not by the first firms to acquire technologically sophisticated plants of theoretically optimal size. So these industries are not dominated by these plants, but rather by the first to exploit the full potential of the plant. That is the entire idea, that by constructing a huge plant, you are only creating the potential. Whether you realize that depends on the human capital part. Once some firms achieve this, a market becomes extremely hard to enter. Challengers must construct comparable plans and do so after the first movers have already worked out problems with suppliers or with new production processes. So it's giving you problems now for new entrants in such markets. Challengers must create distribution networks and marketing systems in markets where first movers have all the contacts and know-how, and challengers must recruit management teams to compete with those that have already mastered these functional and strategic activities. So all these are problems which the companies which enter the market later will face. But who will be the gainer? The gainer will be not the company that starts first. Be very clear on this. The second paragraph does not say the first mover gets all the advantage, but the first person to realize all these economies of scale. That will be the gainer basically. So there's a difference. So the entire passage is basically talking about potential economies of scale and realized economies of scale. The potential economies of scale depends on how big a manufacturing facility you create, but the realized economies of scale depends on the human capital that you have working for you. That's basically the entire passage for us. Talking about purpose, I can't call it completely neutral because the author definitely has, a purpose, and the purpose is to basically say or argue that just putting up huge plans will not make you realize economies of scale. Human capital will. So it is not a completely neutral passage. Maybe it's in favor of investing in human capital or something on those lines. Is what I think. With that thought process, we will look at the first question, which says the passage suggests that, which means it's an inference question, in order for a manufacturer in a capital intensive industry to have a decisive advantage over competitors making similar products, the manufacturer must do what? So, from the entire passage, I can easily conclude that the manufacturer must realize or reach that minimum efficient scale by investing in human capital or something like that. So A says a manufacturer must be the first in the industry to build production facilities that will not help. Building will not help. Realizing will help. B says make every effort to keep fixed and sunk costs as low as possible, not in the passage. B, one of the first to operate its manufacturing plant at minimum efficient scale. That is the answer. C. D says produce goods of higher quality is not relevant. Nowhere in the passage do we bother about quality. E says stockpile raw materials at production sites in order to ensure a steady flow of such materials. Just by stocking raw material, you can't take care of the throughput. There could be other problems on the shop floor, in the supply to wholesalers. So just by stockpiling raw materials, it may not work for you. C is the best because whatever you do, stockpile raw material, handle labor disputes, as long as you can reach the minimum efficient scale quickly, you will be the gainer. So that is what C says, and that's why it should be the answer to the question.